Hi everyone, I'm AboPP, probably the only and best Indian Nuzlocker on YouTube. In this video, I will be going over my attempts at doing a hardcore Nuzlocke of Pokemon Emerald while using Gym Leader's Pokemon only. This is different from any of the Nuzlockes I've done up until this point and will force me to use several Pokemon that I haven't in the past. The rules are simple but help make the run more challenging. As always, because this is a Nuzlocke, if a Pokemon faints, it is considered dead and exiled to the box. For this Nuzlocke, or Gym Lock if you will, I can only access a Gym Leader's Pokemon if I have beaten the Gym Leader before them. For example, before Roxanne, I can only use her 2 Geodudes and 1 Nosepass for all fights before and up to her. Once I beat her, I get access to Brawly's Meditite, Machop and Makuhita and so on. However, for each gym battle, I can only use that Gym Leader's Pokemon. The other rules are listed on screen and are in the description below. I also request you to please hit the like and subscribe buttons as they help out immensely and will ensure that your next encounter has perfect IVs. Trust me. Let's get on with the run. My attempts begin with not 1, not 2, but 3 starters who are magically in my PC at the start of the journey. This means that I can box my chosen starter and use 2 Geodudes and a Nosepass, which is Roxanne's team, for the first bit of the run. Some transparency here. As you can see, I use a randomizer wheel of natures to decide the nature for each Pokemon and then use PK Hex to add each of them to my PC while randomizing their IVs. I did forget to name them different names initially, so several of them are just called the same name, which I won't lie does add some humor. With all that admin stuff out of the way, it's time for Roxanne. I lead with Brawlite the Geodude against her own Geodude, and both of my Geodudes are brought as close to level 16 as possible. I switch Brawlite into the second Brawlite the Geodude. A few rock throws including a crit can help defeat her inferior floating rock, and the first Brawlite learns Magnitude due to leveling up. I can switch into her now and take out the second Geodude and Roxanne's Nosepass now that I have a super effective move against them. An easy win to start off. I have now updated the Pokemon's names and added Brawly's squad, Brawl the Machop, Brakuhita the Makuhita, and Meditite the OG Brawlite. The grunt and first rival fights are easily defeated, so next up is Brawly. Brawlite leads to 2-shot the Machop as he just uses Bulk Up. Meditite can't really hit Brawlite, so a few confusions take him out as well. Makuhita meets the same fate while only getting off a weak Vital throw in return. 2 gyms down and this challenge seems way too easy. I can now add Wattson's squad to my team. For the second rival fight, Water the Electrike can take out her Lombre. I switch in Brawlite on her Marsh Stomp, but a Mud Shot does a lot, so I switch to Brawl as Marsh Stomp uses Bide. I waste time with Growls and then start using Seismic Toss, but a crit Water Gun brings Brawl down to 21 HP. I predict that I won't get crit again, but forget about Torrent, and a Water Gun takes out Brawl for the first death of the run. As is the case most of the times, that death is on me. Brakuhita can come in to take out the Marsh Stomp, and Roxanne the Nosepass takes out the tiny lava slug. No, I will not say her name. And it's time for Wattson, and this should be the most challenging fight yet. I have taught some of the Pokemon Thunderbolt after getting the TMs from the game corner. Steelwatt the Magneton leads to take out the Voltorb but takes some damage in return. Electrike is next and is taken out easily. His own Magneton falls but paralyzes Steelwatt and then deals some more damage. Steelwatt gets fully paralyzed twice against his Manectric as he sets up to +2 attack but is able to land a Sonic Boom in between. I want to save them, so I switch to Water the Voltorb on a weak Shockwave. They deal some damage but are eventually paralyzed and on low health. I switched to Wattage, which was the wrong decision. I should have realized here that Wattson would heal, and even if he didn't, losing water isn't the worst thing in the world. But oh well. Wattage doesn't have Thunderbolt because I thought it would be too easy otherwise. A Spark does shockingly low as Static activates. A Cherry Berry cures him, but Manectric's Thunder Wave paralyzes again. A couple of quick attacks do a lot as Wattage can only nail 1 in return. I sacrifice Water anyway, but the battle's lost at this point. A critical hit quick attack takes out Water, and despite Steelwatt getting off a paralysis, I lose the battle and attempt 1. Well, I guess all Pokemon need to know Thunderbolt and Thunder Wave. Before moving on to attempt 2, I just want to mention and clarify that I always randomize the natures and IVs for each of the Pokemon added in through PK Hex whenever I start off a new attempt, but obviously don't change the names or genders. Attempt 2 goes pretty much the same, except that the rival fight with May is tougher this time as I lose both Brawl and Brawlite. Back to Wattson, and I'm ready to lose Water, so lead them against Voltorb. Water comes out on top with little over half their HP remaining as Electrike comes in. He gets off 3 howls but is at low HP, so I switch in Water to use Water for a free sack later. Water manages to take out the Electrike but is at 1 HP due to a crit and is paralyzed due to static. That means I do have to let him go here. Wattage can come in and set up 2 howls and paralyze Magneton, which does fully paralyze them twice, but they hit a second Thunder Wave, then a 55% accurate Supersonic. Wattson now heals and Wattage hits himself twice in a row, then gets fully paralyzed and falls. Wow. I send out Water, who also gets fully paralyzed and falls. Steelwatt is last and takes out Magneton, but the Cherry Berry is wasted in return. Manectric gets a critical hit Shockwave as I paralyze him. A couple of Thunderbolts bring him down, but he gets off a Thunder Wave of his own, which causes the full paralysis again as he gets back to about 75% health with the held Citrus Berry. Another critical hit Shockwave ends Steelwatt and Attempt 2. The RNG on that fight was heavily stacked against me, so hopefully some luck would help me win the fight. Attempt 3 though ends against Brawly, so I'll jump straight to Attempt 4, during which I lose 5 Pokemon to the rival fight, including Wattage, so I obviously wipe to Wattson, especially because I decide to set up with double teams, not realizing that all of his Pokemon know Shockwave, which cannot miss. I think I was losing my mind at this point, which is why I thought it would be a good idea to try that. Attempt number 5 time. For the rival fight, Brawlite can take out her Lombre, then use Detect to figure out that Marshtomp is going for Bide. So I switch to the now renamed Rox the Geodude, who can valiantly self-destruct to take out her lead Marshtomp, and Braccovita takes out her final Pokemon. Still not saying it. Wattson time. Water leads again and brings the opposing Voltorb down to 1 HP, who self-destructs to take them out. Water can take out his Electrike and do decent damage on Magneton while also paralyzing them and causing Wattson to waste a Super Potion before falling. A couple of Thunderbolts from Wattage take Magneton out as they just remained fully paralyzed. Manectric is last and brought down to the yellow after his Citrus Berry is used up and he is paralyzed before Wattage falls. Steelwatt is last from my end and brings Manectric to the red as the Cherry Berry gets used up. Wattson heals and Manectric is brought down to the red again with Thunderbolts, but paralyzes Steelwatt. A Shockwave does decent damage, but thankfully Steelwatt hits a final Thunderbolt through paralysis as I've beaten Wattson for my furthest attempt. I feel like I've already won the run despite there being a long way to go. I now catch a few more Pokemon as I don't need to hack them in, such as Swablu, Spinda and Skarmory, for whom it takes 6 Great Balls when he's at like 1 HP and paralyzed. Because of this, I call him Bitchnona. Next up is the fight against Maxie, but Brawl can take out his lead Mightyena, Steelwatt can take out Zubat, and Roxy, the second Geodude, can use Magnitude to take out his Camerupt. During a double battle in Flannery's gym against Kindler Cole and Cool Trainer Gerald, I unfortunately lose Brawl. Thanks for all your help, buddy. Flannery time, and I go into this battle expecting to sack a few Pokemon. I lead with Numeri, the Numel, who almost faints to a Magnitude 8 from Flannery's own simply oblivious flame-bodied Camel, but is able to get off a Magnitude 10 in return for the overkill one-shot. I did not expect her to be faster there. Her second Pokemon, still not saying it, is one-shot as Numeri thankfully outspeeds. Camerupt comes in and Numeri valiantly sacrifices himself to allow a free switch into Flaunt the Camerupt, who can't take much damage here, so I set up a Focus Energy as Flannery sets up the Sun. A Magnitude 7 almost one-shots, but Flaunt is now attracted to his female counterpart. I switch to Sluggery, as Flannery heals. He's able to yawn the Camerupt while taking a tackle in return. A Rock Throw does some chip damage as Flannery uses Sunny Day again. Flaunt can now come in and take out Camerupt and then Torkoal with Magnitudes, thus winning me the 4th badge. Time to face Norman, and I cannot wait to use my Slaking called Wormon. I lead with him and Norman leads with Spinda, who is one-shot with return. He then sends out his own Slaking, so I switch to Norda the Spinda for a potential sack, but Norman is a massive pussy and goes for counter. I can attract him as Slaking loafs around, but then hits through Love for an incredibly hard facade as Hypnosis actually hits. I switch back to Wormon, who can take out the Slaking with 3 returns. Vigoroth is next, so I stay in as Warman loafs around, but Vigoroth can't take him out unless he crits like 4 times in a row. So with Slack Off to stay healthy, Warman can take him and the Linoone out for an easy battle. Winona is next, and Wingona the Pelipper is the star here, but my poor luck with Pelipers continues as she doesn't have Drizzle. Ice Beams and Shockwaves take out her lead Swablu as Winona uses up a Hyper Potion. Ice Beam one-shots Tropius after getting a critical hit, 2 Shockwaves take out Pelipper, Surfs and Shockwaves deal with Skarmory, and an Ice Beam does a lot on Altaria, who Dragon Dances and then gets a paralysis with Dragon Breath, which leaves Wingona fully paralyzed. That's fine though. I can switch to Bitchnona, who can tank a Dragon Breath and use 1 Air Cutter to win, thus winning me the 6th gym badge. Sadly though, at this point of writing the script, I've just realized that I've lost all the footage from the next stream, which had the 7th and 8th gym fights, along with all the Team Magma and Aqua battles in between. There's 6 deaths during the stream as well, 3 during the gym battles, which I'll cover in a bit, but Wingona, Flaunt, and Flant the Torkoal perish to fights that I don't remember. I feel bad for forgetting how they died, and the only reason I know that they did is because they were stored in the same box as every other dead Pokemon. Oh well, it's a Nuzlocke. For the 7th and 8th gyms, as they're important fights, I'm able to recreate what happened to some extent. However, the battles you'll now see are obviously not the same as the original ones if compared turn by turn, but the results are pretty much the same, and this is the best I can do in the circumstances. For Tate and Liza, I mirror their Zato and Claydol leads with Claydate the Claydol and Zyza the Zato. The latter protects while Claydate uses a Silk Scarf boosted self-destruct which cleanly one-shots both Claydol and Zato. 2 correct self-destruct uses in the same attempt make me happy. Tatok the Solrock, who is holding an XP share and thus levels up to level 43 once Claydate falls, can now learn Solar Beam. Zyza goes first next and uses Sunny Day, which allows Tatok to hit Solrock with a 1-turn Solar Beam as they fail a Sunny Day, and Lunatone uses Calm Mind. A second Solar Beam takes them out as Zyza uses Nightshade and Lunatone uses Calm Mind again, which is a bit scary. But the battle is now a 2v1, so Lunatone eventually falls while not doing much to Zyza with resisted Psychics, and I won the 7th gym badge. For one, I forgot to take Loveleo the Love Disc into the battle when recreating footage, but that doesn't really matter because she wasn't used anyway. She's still resting after defeating Cynthia's Garchomp during my Renegade Platinum run, which you should check out. The links are in the description below. I lead with Wallaunt the Crawdaunt, who can set up to +2 attack with Swords Dance, while a Lumberry cures the Sweet Kiss confusion. She can then take out Love Disc, Celio, Whiscash and Crawdaunt while coming down to 1 HP herself. In the original battle, she had gone down, so I have to let her perish here to Kingdra. The same fate befalls my own Kingdra, called Waldra, who also falls as she did in the original battle. Whiscash, the Whiscash, can take out Juan's lead though, thus winning me the final battle with 2 deaths, of whom Waldra was probably an Elite 4 Pokemon. 8 gym badges done, and I've beaten each gym leader with their own teams, albeit a bit stronger. Up next is the Wally fight in Victory Road, but this should be easy. Volio the Celio takes out his Altaria and Roselia. Whiscash can one-shot Magneton and take out Delcatty, while Bitchnona takes out Gardevoir. It's time for the Elite 4, and my team includes Bitchnona the Skarmory, Whiscash the Whiscash, Warman the Slaking, Steelwatt the Magneton, Tronona the Tropius, and Volio the Celio. That's exactly 4 gym leaders being represented. Can I prove that these 4 gym leaders Pokemon are better than those of the Elite 4? Only one way to find out. For Sydney, I lead with Bitchnona as he leads with Mightyena. I set up a substitute, then use 3 spikes as Mightyena keeps using Sand Attack for some reason. He eventually falls to toxic damage and air cutters but manages to get rid of a second substitute. Crawdaunt is walled and taken out by Tronona, who also does some damage on Absol as he sets up Swords Dance. I correctly predicted Rock Slide, so switch to Warman, who doesn't take much and takes out Absol with the Brick Break. Shiftry and Cacturne miss their status moves, so fall to Brick Breaks as well. Outside of risking a crit on Skarmory, the battle was quite clean. For Phoebe, I employ the same strategy of substitute spikes and toxic, as Dusclops doesn't do much in return. A full restore does mean that a second substitute is used, but it's up again as Bannet comes in and takes out the substitute with Thunderbolt. I now switch to Whisace on another Thunderbolt, and she then takes out both Bennett's, Sableye and Dusclops while only risking a critical hit towards the end. Glacier time, and it's the same strategy of Substitute, Spikes and Toxic, but Elite Celio starts going for Ice Ball, which might cause issues if it builds up. However, she misses her second one, so I can set up a third Spike. I switch to Steel Watt on the fourth Ice Ball, which does a little damage, but Steel Watt can now take out her remaining Pokemon with Thunderbolts without risking any crits. Last up is Drake, who leads with Shelgon, and I lead with Volio to set up a double team because I expected to protect, but Drake predicts well and uses a Rock Tomb for decent damage and to lower her speed. Now that he's faster, he gets off 2 protects in a row, but then misses Double Edge and falls to an Ice Beam. Salamance's Rock Slide does a lot of damage but doesn't crit, so an Ice Beam takes him out. I'm fine to lose Volio, so stay in and I'm rewarded as Altaria just uses Dragon Dance and falls to an Ice Beam as well. Kingdra gets a paralysis with Body Slam that doesn't crit, so I decide to save Volio after she got off an Ice Beam through paralysis. I switch to Tronona on a Surf. Kingdra starts setting up Dragon Dances, which is scary as Magical Leaf does pitiful damage. A Body Slam of course paralyzes again, so I switch in Slaking as Drake heals. I correctly predicted Dragon Dance, so go for Encore. Kingdra keeps dancing as a return does a lot, but Drake heals as Kingdra's Encore ends. He then goes for a Smoke Screen, but another return brings him to the red as he sets up another Dragon Dance. To avoid another return missing, I switch to Volio to let her go and she falls to a Body Slam. Thanks for your service, buddy. I switch to Bitchnona, who takes a lot from a Surf, but a crit would have been fine, so an Aerial Ace takes him out. Last is Flygon, so I switch to Whisace, who can use an Ice Beam to one-shot Flygon and help me beat the Elite Four. That was a tough battle towards the end, but I'm glad that I saw the Volio sacrifice as an out because she wouldn't have been used against the champ at all. Speaking of whom, it's now time for Wallace. I lead with Steel Watt against his Wailord, who falls to a Thunderbolt. Gyarados comes in, so I switch to Bitchnona, correctly predicting an Earthquake. A Surf does decent damage, but Toxic thankfully hits. I now switch to Tronona, who handles a weak Surf very well, and expect a Hyper Beam, so switch to Steel Watt, but he sets up Dragon Dance again. I do the same thing, but Gyarados uses Surf as I send in Steel Watt. I expect a heal here, so stay in and go for Thunderbolt, and I'm proven right as Gyarados falls to the Thunderbolt. For Whiscash, I switch back to Tronona, who can take him out with a critical hit Magical Leaf. Milotic is next and threatens with Ice Beams, so I switch to Warman, who can Encore Milotic into Ice Beam. I now switch in Magneton on a resisted Ice Beam, which doesn't freeze or kill as a Citrus Berry brings them back to half health. A second Ice Beam doesn't crit either, so a Thunderbolt brings him to less than half, but a Citrus Berry heals him back to a little over 50%. I then decide to sack Steel Watt, but they want to live and survive on 2 HP after a low roll Ice Beam, then take out Wallace's lead with Thunderbolt. For Tentacruel, I switch to Whisace, who dodges a Hydro Pump and a Toxic and then one-shots with Earthquake. My luck in this battle has been amazing. Last is Ludicolo, who starts using double teams as I switch to Tronona and use Flight twice, which misses twice. I switch strategies, so start setting up growths. With Synthesis, Tronona can set up freely as Ludicolo can do barely any damage with Surfs. A few Magical Leaves take out the Ludicolo, winning me the battle and making me the champion of the Hoenn region, with only Gym Leader's Pokémon. However, there's one last fight left in the run, the final battle against Steven Stone. I lead with Steel Watt, who uses Thunderbolt to one-shot his lead Skarmory. Aggron is next, so I switch to Bitchnona on the Earthquake and then to Whisace on the Thunder, who can two-shot with an Earthquake as Aggron just absorbs sunlight. Cradily is next, but Bitchnona walls him, so to no one's surprise, I set up Substitute Spikes and use Toxic as Cradily falls with the Substitute up. Claydol is next and gets rid of the Substitute, but is hit with Toxic in return. I switch in Whisace, who can tank a couple of Earthquakes and take out Claydol with Surfs as Steven heals. I risk a Psychic crit from Metagross but survive as Earthquake does a lot. I switch to Warman on a hard Psychic but can take Metagross out with Earthquake. Steel Watt comes in on a Slash from Armaldo and can two-shot with Thunderbolt, thus winning me the run. That was a run of 2 halves. The rival fight before Wattson and the Wattson fight itself were incredibly challenging, but once I beat him, it was smooth sailing all the way through. I'm glad I got to use a bunch of cool Pokemon that I hadn't in the past during Emerald games, such as Slaking, Xatu, Claydol and Tropius. If you enjoyed this challenge and want me to try it with other Pokemon games or any other unique challenges, let me know in the comments. If you'd like to see more videos, please leave a like and a subscribe to support the channel. Lastly, check out my other videos on Renegade Platinum, Inclement Emerald and the Fire Red monologues, all linked in the description below. Thank you so much for watching. See ya!